Hi, I'm Fernando Gutierrez, and my book is The Manual of Design Fiction by Julian Bleecker, Nick Foster, Fabian Girardin, and Nicholas Nova. So, who wrote the manual? The writers of the manual are the founders of the Near Future Laboratory and the founding practitioners of the practice known as design fiction. They are Julian Bleecker, who's a designer, engineer, and futurist, Nick Foster, who's a designer, futurist, and strategist, Fabian Girardin, who's an engineer and data scientist, and Nicholas Nova, who's an anthropologist, a design researcher, and a writer. So why did they write the manual? So their stated reasons for writing the manual are to share the practices and processes associated with design fiction as a vehicle to proselytize design fiction both to futurists and to non-futurists as a critical tool for thinking about the future, which is important to note because there is a lot of background in there about foresight for non-futurists so that people that are practicing it have some idea of the framework around it. And then also to help their own team by formalizing their own methods, essentially writing down what it is they do so that their team has a manual to know how to do it. So what is in it? So what is in the Manual of Design Fiction, first edition? The history of the Near Future Laboratory and the history of the Manual of Design Fiction are included in the book. The what as well as the why of design fiction, essentially what it is, how to do it, and why to do it. How to use design fiction, as well as notes on running a design fiction workshop. It's not completely comprehensive, but it does give you a lot of insight into how to run a workshop. If you've ever run a workshop of any kind before, these notes will help you tailor it specifically for using design fiction and for creating design fictions. And then also applying the results of your design fiction exercise. So above and beyond just creating that design fiction, how to apply it, how to use it to help influence whether it's a client or a team or what have you. And then what is it about? So design fiction is defined as the deliberate use of diegetic prototypes to suspend disbelief about change. So for those of you like me who didn't know what diegetic means, it's essentially within the context of the story. So essentially, for example, diegetic music is music that characters within the story can hear. So if there's a marching band playing music and the characters can hear it, then obviously that's diegetic music. However, as Darth Vader comes into view and the music plays, you can assume that he's not hearing the Emperor's March as he's walking down the hall. So that would be an example of non-diegetic. Design Future believes that the future is not all jumpsuits and jetpacks. So it asks what kind of stuff is lying around. And that's the thing that becomes the design fiction, that stuff. Design fiction is an exploration of the future mundane and the everyday things that inform it. As I mentioned, it's not all jumpsuits and jetpacks. So what does a day-to-day look like? What are little things that you can pick up that might influence your perception of that future? So one question that design fiction asks is, if you jump to the future, and it's an indeterminate future, there's not a hard and fast date, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And that's part of the fun of design fiction. But if you jumped into that future and had 5 minutes to grab whatever was around, so you're in this crappy time machine essentially, and you land somewhere, and it could be a 7-Eleven, it could be a market, it could be a library, it could be a classroom, and you've got 5 minutes, it could be somebody's bedroom, and you have 5 minutes to grab something, what would it look like? And those are the kinds of things that we build in design fiction. So what's the impact? Design fiction makes the future more grounded by focusing on the mundane artifacts that tell a story about the future. It may not be the hero story of the future, but it's a story of the future, and it's a future that's more likely to be the future that's commonplace to the everyday person. It's more relatable, favoring the everyday experience over the exceptional event, and it's more digestible, facilitating discussion around tangible artifacts rather than abstract concepts or dense reports. If you've been reading a book that's kind of hard to get your head around, design fiction is kind of the opposite of that. It really tries to make things as easy to understand and tangible and non-abstract as possible. Now, How are we using the manual for our experiential future? Well, um, we're still kind of fleshing out all of the interactions and deliverables for our project. So we've still got some opportunities there in terms of how we're actually going to use it in depth. But the expectation is that we will be creating some tangible artifacts. And most likely those will be things like information guides or posters or handouts as we're doing the future of connection. And we're going to have some interactions and some relationships going on with the people that are going to be participating. So in order to give them kind of a framework, we're looking most likely to be creating those types of artifacts. And then design fiction will likely be responsible for some of the more subtle insights into our future as well. So it won't necessarily just be a poster that welcomes you into this grand experience. It may be tiny little things that are just kind of laying about for people to pick up and notice. So that's how we expect to use it, at least certainly how I expect to use it. And I am sharing this with my team as well. So that is the plan. And that's it. That is the Manual of Design Fiction. Hope you enjoyed it.